Okay, good morning everyone. It's 9:30, so we'll make a start for today's council meeting. I declare the council meeting open. Please note that this meeting is live streamed and the consequences of that. I shall open with a karakia. Whakatau mai te warua, whakawātea mai te hinanaru, whakarite mai te tinana, kia ea ai ngā mahi. Ai. I have an apology for lateness from Councillor Daly. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Henry, Councillor Coxhead, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. There are no late items that I'm aware of. Does anyone have a declaration of interest? No? Okay. There are no public excluded items. I can't see anyone for public forum. There are no presentations, so we'll move on to reports. Sorry, not to the minutes at least. So starting with the minutes for the Katikati Community Board meeting held on the 3rd of October. Can I have a mover and seconder for those, please? Councillor Joyce, Councillor Henry, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Mokura Community Board meeting held on the 9th of April. Councillor Granger, Councillor Thwaites, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Te Community Board meeting held on the 11th of April. Deputy Mayor Scrimger, Councillor Wickers, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Makatu Community Board meeting on the 16th of April. Deputy Mayor Scrimger, someone else? Councillor Murray Benj, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Waihi Beach Community Board meeting on 22nd of April. Councillor Soul, Councillor Henry, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Extraordinary Council meeting held on the 6th of March. I shall move those. Deputy Mayor Scrimger, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting on the 28th of March. I'll move those. And Councillor Henry, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Annual Plan and Long-Term Plan Committee meeting on the 19th of March. Deputy Mayor Scrimger, I'll second those. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Annual Plan and Long-Term Plan Committee meeting on the 2nd of April. Deputy Mayor Scrimger, Councillor Henry, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Community Committee held on the 3rd of April. Councillor Murray Benj, Councillor Coxhead, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. The last leg now, I think. Minutes of the Council meeting on the 4th of April, I'll move those. Deputy Mayor Scrimger, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the District Plan Committee on the 8th of April. Deputy Mayor Scrimger, Councillor Granger, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Minutes of the Te Spatial Plan Subcommittee on 22nd of November. Deputy Mayor Scrimger, Councillor Wickers, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And last one of the minutes is the minutes of the Te Spatial Plan Subcommittee meeting held on the 18th of April. So that's Deputy Mayor Scrimger and Councillor Granger. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay, so moving into the reports proper, as it were. So we have on page 134, Peter Watson will take us into the easement over a Esplanade Reserve. So, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So we've received an application for someone to, I guess, legalise an easement across council reserve land in order to facilitate a irrigation or water supply for the irrigation of the orchard. So it's a pretty standard statutory process we follow here, and I guess the report speaks for itself. So happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Joyce.
Just wondering, and I didn't see it in here, so forgive me if it is, but will we generate income from this commercial use of public land? Both this matter and also the fact they've got trees on the reserve as well. So surely if it's private use, there should be an income attached.
We traditionally don't charge for an easement. Case law has looked upon it because there's only one way to get that water source. It'd be unfair to charge for that. There's been some past precedents have been set. With regards to the avocado trees on it, that's something we'll be working with under that policy on encroachment policy. We haven't yet concluded negotiations with the person about how that might look, keeping in mind that they effectively maintain council's land at no cost, and if they weren't to do that, we'd have to go in there and deal with the likes of woolly nightshade and other noxious invasive plant species to try and manage. Yeah, so it's not, we don't look at it fully from a full commercial perspective in that regard.
Councillor Henry?
I believe this is the new owner of the orchard. Is that correct?
Yes, my understanding, the person has recently acquired the property.
So how was the water to the looking pretty well established orchard? How was that? How did they water the orchard before? Do you know?
I guess what this implies is that the irrigation or the water take and the water supply pipe across the reserve have been there illegally, and they,
Okay,
as the new owner, are trying to
That's what I figured.
rationalise and legalise the situation because they
So
want
this
to be
is
a
in
good,
a retrospect.
correct. They wish to be a good
Yeah.
business operator and
So-
follow the law.
Also, they have got well-established avocado trees on the reserve, and it's quite clearly stated that the reserve is still able to be accessed by the public. Might go through it. So, how is the health and safety of the management of those trees within the reserve going to be covered for the public if they happen to be in there and there's some injury? Blah blah blah.
Right, there's a couple of things here. So what can occur if they wish to, well, I guess first point that needs to be made is that currently at the moment, the public can't get access to the reserve because it's isolated because we don't have the land either side. In the future, should that occur, then that's a matter where the likes of any spraying or orchard operations, which occurs on other esplanade strips and reserves around the district, we can do closure notices and signage and stuff, standard protocols, I guess, for dealing with health and safety issues on a site and managing people through it. But I think at the moment, it's a very low likelihood of that occurring in the future as well, and it'd be a long time off before we had a connected walkway, cycleway through that area there. But that would be changing the thing, and this is for a 10-year period as well.
I hear what you're saying, but if someone did go on there and there was some damage, who would be responsible? The owner would be responsible. Wouldn't it be prudent to still have some sort of signage up or something, just in case?
Yes, we could require that the landowner puts up some signage about health and safety, operating orchard, etc., just to forewarn everyone, yeah.
Councillor Granger?
I presume that this stream easement reserve came after the trees were originally planted as part of a subdivision. We got that land when the subdivision happened. So it's something that's happened after the trees were planted. Would that be right?
The trees appear to be planted before my being here, so I don't have the answer to that. They're that old. Yeah, so we have a lot of that around the district. Obviously, with paper roads and stuff, we have orchard trees planted across the land, and we would deal with it. If the council in the future, what I've said in here is that the use for council public use overrides that of the private use. So if we want to put a walkway, cycleway through there, that takes precedence over this here. This is for a 10-year period too, by the way, so things may or may not change by then.
Okay, I can't see any further questions, so I shall seek a mover and seconder for those recommendations, whichever we may wish to do. Councillor Murray-Benge, seconded Councillor Coxhead. Would you like to speak to the motion, either of you?
So it just seems a sensible thing to be doing.
Thank you. Sorry, by the way, I assume you're recommendation 1, 2 and 3, is that correct? Okay. Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour.
Yeah, I'd like to support this process. I just would say though, in response in some of the questions, it's most unusual for payment to be attached to an easement to supply water or whatever, even in a private situation. So I don't think that just because it's council land, we should have been seeking that. But I do think it's important that this situation is legitimised and that there's whatever is deemed to be appropriate in terms of use of the land, and as has been talked about, and conditions that are put around it that are appropriate to protecting the public use, as has already been stated by Mr. Watson. So yes, I'm in support of this process.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Scrimgeour. Is there any further comments, debate? No, in which case I shall put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And so I think Peter's going to stay here for the next item from page 141, which is the vesting of Earnston Reserve in council from the Kiritu Trust. Councillor Flates.
I certainly take pleasure in recommending 1, 2, 3 and 5 of the recommendations on page 141.
Okay, I'll note that for shortly. I'm sure there's some questions, and I think I see some around. So when your time comes to move, I'll let you do that. But Councillor Murray Benj.
Happy to second that.
Okay.
Move straight to debate.
Again, I'll hold that over for just for a moment. But Councillor Henry, did you have a question?
My question in relation to in relation to the report that I read from Periraco, Julie's report, their request for a co-management relationship with managing the reserve, and just like your reflection and how much notice or inclusion in the operations it may have. And the other thing was, or maybe if you can answer that question, I'll remember what the other thing was.
Sure, thank you. Sure, Mr. Chair. So with Peter Arco, we've been working with them over the years on a lot of opportunities for co-management and potentially co-governance on issues. For example, Huharua Park. It's quite clear in there when we did that park there, they were co-opted onto the hearings committee for the reserve management plan. We always negotiate and will engage with them on lots of things associated with the park, as I've engaged with them on this particular instance as well. They do have some aspirations for, like a lot of other iwi do, for about involvement in reserves and what have you. As you know, we have had Tahara in place for a while now, and we've agreed that there'd be a transfer of ownership to that and co-management of that. And my preference is to work through that process with Tahara, and any learnings from that process of co-management and stuff would be applied to other reserves that they have an strong interest in being involved with. So,
So in waiting, I actually have third question. So this question was the one I was going to ask, was about the reserve. Will it become a part of it's not actually in a reserve? It's called a reserve, but it's not reserve status. What is that going to be made into reserve?
That's correct. It has no reserve classification. It's not subject to the Reserves Act at this point in time. It's obviously subject to under the Kiritu National Trust ownership, and I don't even think they have their own covenant over their own land because they own it. But one thing they would like to do is to protect the initial intentions of Mr. Irons and stuff was to put a covenant over it, and we think that makes sense because the purpose of the land would be the same. But we could also, through the reserve management plan process for the Kaimai ward, so if this was a view to accept this today, it would become part of that ward network,
Yeah.
and would be given consideration to classification, et cetera, through there.
All right. The other, from the same report, the underlying implication was that, and I don't know whether it is, that might have been part of Piriaka had it as part of their treaty settlement, that area. Is that correct?
Look, I'm not an expert in that space, but I do understand for the Katikati Tupuna confiscation, all of their land effectively was in the same position. So that's what Julie has noted in the 1865 conservation. This land was affected by that, but so was all lands in that area.
And I would imagine that they would be of the opinion that, I mean, you're talking to them, that that would remain the way it is now. It's a protected area and, something.
Correct. You'll notice at the end of Julie's thing, she talks about the ownership, but she says if that wasn't to eventuate, she's then signalling that Piriraka will support the transfer to council's ownership.
Peter, can I ask you, because it talks about in the recommendations about placing a relevant covenant on the title prior to transfer. I'm intrigued that does it not already have a covenant protecting it as part of the QE2 trust, or was that never done?
My understanding, and we had invited QE2 to be present today, but they couldn't make it, sorry. My understanding that because they own land, it comes under the auspices of how they operate. I don't think it has an actual covenant registered on it. They are saying that they would want to do that before any transfer was to occur. So I guess just to summarise a little bit too, so today is just about getting some direction from council if you want to entertain the transfer, because we could have done a lot of detail leading up to this year, then you could have said, no, we're not interested. So we'd rather get that in principle thing, and there'll be a lot more negotiations and settlement, and these things will be ironed out through that process before we actually accept anything.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Joyce.
So we have a number of reserves that are not covered as reserves. Some of them held in fee simple, a certain one in Katikati, for example. Wouldn't it be good practice to put this under the Reserves Act as part of this process? And then a follow-up question.
Yes, so the best practice would be, yes, to put it as under a classification under the Reserves Act. However, having said that, and I think Section 138 of the Local Government Act, if you don't have it classified as a reserve under the Reserves Act, then there are protections under the Local Government Act for what you can and can't do with reserves as well. But obviously the Reserves Act would be the most appropriate statute to hold it under.
Well, if we can add that to the motion, because I do believe, we've had problems with reserves held as fee simple, and we're told, it's not really a reserve. We can, for example, remove a. Can
you repeat what you would add to?
I would add that we should, if we take ownership and classify it under the Reserves Act, I don't know the exact wording, but something along those lines.
I suspect that needs a consultation process. Would that be right, Peter, or it might be better done on the RMP?
Yeah, through the Reserve Management Plan process would be the correct, I guess, process to do that, because at the moment it's not in there because it's not our land.
Sure.
We'd do that through there, and if you come up with a policy outcome there that the land be gazetted as a reserve, then that's the next action that staff would take to realise that.
Just because we have so many reserves that aren't under the Reserves Act, and that has affected their management. And the second thing is, could we formalise in some way that we'll negotiate with Piriraka to try to meet their aspirations? That would be a useful signal to send back to Mana Whenua from this meeting that we're taking their concerns seriously.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. That isn't part of the debate today. The recommendations are quite clear here, and Piriaka, that's a debate for another day.
It's in the report.
There is, and I was going to add an additional recommendation that we receive tabled item 1, which is what was sent through last night, which is the letter from Piriraka. I think I don't think there's a problem in acknowledging that, and we receive it and say we acknowledge their aspirations or something like that. I don't think there's any issues with saying that. So we'll get there in just a moment though. So, but next up I've got Councillor Coxhead and then Councillor Granger.
Peter, just Wakakotahi wanting to seek a leaseholder of a portion of the land for the realignment of the the realignment work for the stream. Has that, I know Pirirako, it says here that they're working with Waka Kotahi, but has council worked with them and where has that got to?
So what's effectively happening there, if you're not with the local stuff there, that's where the road will start, the current TNL will join in, go from 4 to 2 lanes. And there's an increase of, obviously with hard surface stuff and management of increased stormwater upstream of Ianson Reserve. And the Friends of Ianson Reserve and the Trust, they have had, with their lawyers, been dealing with Waka Kotahi on, I guess, a form of a compensation package or mitigation package is probably best to say, about how they deal with those downstream effects of that. Because the other thing you got downstream is the railway line too, that causeway causes, where the railway line is, which is Kiwi Rail land, that stops the flow of water down there as well, can build up. So I've been party to that mitigation package with the interest that, we manage this land anyway through the management agreement and could potentially be owning it. And so I'm satisfied with where we've got to with Waka Kotahi and getting a form of quite a bit of pūtea out of them to upgrade some of the tracks and stuff in the area there. And they are going to realign slightly to widen where the culverts and stuff come through there, which is a better outcome for us than what they originally had planned. So I'm satisfied that we've participated in that there as a land manager and also as a potential owner. Yeah.
I'm being signalled that Councillor Thwaites knows the answer to this
Well,
one. So
not,
Councillor Thwaites.
Peter's answer largely just to help Councillor Cox. It's part of the revocation back to the Western Bay and the stormwater work they got done for TNL. The culvert actually under Loop Road is actually going to be removed and a bridge is going to be built as part of actually restoring the ecological mana to it. So the concrete pipe is getting ripped up. A bridge is actually being built, invested, given to us. There you go, guys, a brand new bridge for Western Bay on the Loop Road, and the stream is going to be enhanced as all part of that mitigation work. So it's actually a major improvement, and I guess that that is part of that, tying that part in. There's only going to be the culvert. Unfortunately, it has to go underneath TNL, but Loop Road's going to get a bridge built.
Thank you for that local knowledge, always useful to get. Councillor Granger.
Thank you. So am I correct in my understanding that when this was done, QE2 stepped right out of it, apart from requiring covenant, as it transfers across to us, they will step right away from this piece of land and it just becomes, they've got nothing to do with the management or involvement at all.
That would be correct, yep. Just so a little bit of background may not come through strong enough in the report. So basically what has happened with the QE2 Trust, through various deals over the years, they've ended up owning 30 plus parcels of land. Their business is managing covenants. So they've built up this asset base, which now they're having to do land management rates, all sorts of stuff involved with, and they don't want to be in that space. So that's why they're doing this rationalisation. They're looking around at who could be better positioned in those communities to manage it, and it's when they come to council. That's what they're really trying to achieve here. I understand they've got about 6 properties that they just cannot dispose of because of the way it's tied in with the covenants and stuff, but they're certainly trying to rationalise their holdings.
Thank you. So I have indications from Councillor Thwaites and Councillor Murray Benge to move and second the recommendations. That would be 1, 2, 3, 5, and an additional recommendation 6 to receive tabled item 1 and acknowledge Pirirako's aspirations for future discussions. Would that, are you happy with those, Councillor Thwaites, Councillor Murray Benge? Right. Is there any debate on this? We've probably had a fair discussion, but Councillor Thwaites.
No, it gives me great pleasure to move this. Actually, as a youngster growing up, the Ianson Jersey stud was actually around on what is now Ianson Road, off Munro Road. Keith farmed there originally. That land was sold for the kiwi fruit development, and he purchased a farm at Loop Road. And I can remember driving back with that revegetating native bush. It's growing on some of those flats where hay was being made. With me as a youngster driving past, there was hay paddocks, and now it's bush. So it just shows it was a super generous offer. Keith, I understand, was a former Tauranga County councillor and made that offer, much like the Noble family are doing now with the Katikati parcel. So it just shows incredible generosity of that. So like I said, I think it's a great thing that Ianson former farm round the back of me is going to be well over 100 titles shortly once TNL goes through. And it just shows the growth of the dairy farm went to kiwi fruit and now it's going to lifestyle zone. So outstanding generosity and great pleasure moving it.
Thank you. Councillor Sol, did you wish to speak? Yeah.
Solidly support this right from go. I think it's a wonderful thing that we're being able to take this on. The issue obviously is in the report that basically there should be no extra cost to us. It's not like we're taking on something that's going to hang us. So that was great. And I really feel that the only other area I had any concerns was with the Wakakotahi area and the integrity of the water coming through. But that appears to have also been totally addressed. And I just think it's a wonderful opportunity for everybody here in the district. I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. I see Councillor Henry.
I too think it's acknowledge what Councillor Thwaite said, that the generosity of families that have lived here generational and what they give back to the community is of huge benefit to generations to come. I'd also like to acknowledge council in the way that they've supported the Friends of Ianson that they have long supported, and the wise move that council had made to appoint a person that is a connector for all these community-based groups that are volunteer within the reserves and management space, and that is working very well. And I think that from what I've seen, that those community-based groups are actually growing because they have a strong guidance and connected, you know, a go-to person. And we've talked about go-to person in terms of the art space, and that this is a clear example of how it can work. Just a little plug for that. Okay, thank you. So well done to the team, and we'll wish you all the best with doing all the recommendations.
Thank you for the feedback.
I suppose we better wait for the vote, Councillor Henry, but okay. Councillor Murray Benj.
It's all been said, sir, but it is a great gift. And when you consider that Mr. Noble has also gifted land to us, the generosity of the community is really quite outstanding here in the Bay. And I agree with Councillor Henry, our volunteers, where would we be without them? And sometime we should actually celebrate that, and we don't do that enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I think I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So moving on to page 162, which is the request for funds from the Katikati Town Centre Development Fund for the Market Square Development Project. I believe Kerry or Cedric?
The wrong one, sorry. Because at a meeting in April, when it was originally brought to you, the request was left to lie on the table. So it's just come back with a little more detail. So Katikati Community Board, based on their town centre plan, is looking to create a market square. Over the last long while, it's been through many iterations of it, and due to budget constraints, we've landed on one that that we feel will achieve an outcome but still allow us to expand on it, but they need this money approved to get some detailed engineering design and firm costings done on it. I'll take it everyone's read the report.
Thank you, Kerry. Are there any questions of Kerry or Cedric? Councillor Joyce.
Can I do a Don Thwaites and signal my intention to move, please?
Okay, I think I'll go Councillor Henry, but yeah, in due course, Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on this one? Councillor Maybench.
I'm certainly in favour of it, but how fast does this allow the development to go?
Now that you've approved it, we'll move on it. Yep, we can crack on and get it done, Margaret.
The timetable, I believe, is in the report, so there's a bit more detail for you there. Councillor Henry.
Unfortunately, we were not able to secure a deal or a boundary change.
Is this a
with the-
question, Councillor
Yes,
Henry?
it is, with the owner. So that leaves the totality of the desire and the concept not fully able to be realised. But I am still very confident that this one should go ahead. So how does this plan, I know it's only a concept thing, but in your mind, how will it tie in with the big tarmac space that is behind the building that's going to be probably quite a feature of the marketplace square?
So one of the main outcomes that they wanted to achieve through that town centre plan was connectivity between the War Memorial Hall's new back door through to Patukamanua. It's really important in this design that we will do that, provide that connectivity, but it'll also allow the open market square where people will still be able to gather, but will still be able to be progressed even within that space to allow for markets or gathering. And it actually reconfigures that whole car park, so the markets can be as big or small as you want them.
But it doesn't actually realise that the whole market square concept because of that land. And I'm really happy for it to go ahead, but I think in my head, I can see that it would work, but I just want to know what council see in terms of working around that big space.
I'm going to have a crack. So I think the important thing here is that it is a step towards the vision. And by no means does it deliver against the vision. It doesn't constrain that vision, so it doesn't get in the way of achieving those other things at a later date. I think there's two things that I think you need to consider. One is, will there ever be the funding available to realise that whole vision? And if not, do you think that there is sufficient value in the spend of 300,000-ish to get what you get, assuming there might not be any more after this?
Thank you, John. That was actually a very similar point to what I was going to make, which I might as well make now. I think we need to bear in mind if and whether phases 2 and 3 will go ahead. And if it does not, does phase 1 achieve the goals? And those goals are connectivity between the Memorial Hall and the library, tidying up the area behind Westpac, and creating a usable and useful space for a market and other community functions. So I think that's the questions that should be in your mind when you decide this. I'm just following on from John. I just wanted to raise the things that I think our council should be thinking of when they're making up the mind in the debate. But I'll go back to Councillor Henry if she's got a further question.
Whilst I might appear concerned, I just really wanted to understand what council's view of it. It's not ideal, the situation, I agree, but it is not insurmountable in actually making that perimeter of what is a reasonably good tarmac on the land that we know we don't own to make it an attractive space. There could be seating around the edges, with the owner of the property is willing to discuss about certain things that could happen. An outdoor stage could be put around the edge to soften all those edges around it, which would make it attractive. Well, he's.
I use my chairman's prerogative on that one, but you're right, Councillor Granger. I think we're moving into debate. So strictly, are there any questions at this point? And then we can have the debate, because I'm more than happy to have that. So, Councillor Cox, was there a question there?
Just looking at stage 2 and the estimated cost of 530, is that something that could be a community initiative in terms of raising funds? Is that something that would commonly happen?
Yes, I'm sure that once the space is there, the community's going to want to pull together to make it as good as what they possibly can.
Councillor Murray Bench.
A question to Mr Holyoake. In this would qualify for a TECT grant because it's a major project and to complete it would be really quite sensible.
Yeah, I think, I'm sure we could talk to TECT. I think the issue here is there's a funding issue and then there's also a obtaining the land issue. And both of them are highly uncertain at this point.
Sir, it's just that the question of TECT, it's a fundamental community open check and we should be able to take advantage of it. The fact that it's council, there was really my question as to whether that would disqualify us from actually applying for that fund. So I'll assume that we can do it.
I mean, normally if you put money in, that makes TECT look more favourably on it. That's my assumption, but Kerry, did you want to answer that? No.
Yes, we could apply to TECT for funding for it. Aside from the funding issue is that the people that own that car park don't want to sell it this time. Yeah.
Councillor Granger.
So my question also is about funding in the future. So are there any monies at all in the long-term plan as it stands to go towards this project?
So not for phase 2 and 3, but for phase 1, that's the Town Centre Development Fund.
Well, I appreciate that the Town Centre Fund has sufficient to cover phase 1, but
that's it, yeah. Yeah. Councillor Henry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wickers.
So just to help me out here, so the funds that would be allocated to this have been raised already, is that correct? Yes, and that was raised through a targeted rate? Yep, and that the community board are supporting this? Yep. So my question is, for the councillors out that way, do you see this as value for money to achieve phase 1? Yep, thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we better have a debate on this. So I note that Councillor Joyce was happy to move. I presume that's 1, 2, 3 and 4 about to approve. And Councillor Henry would be happy to second. So Councillor Joyce, would you like to speak to your motion?
There's a great quote attributed to Voltaire. Never let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This is a good improvement. If you drive around that car park, there are traffic conflicts every day. The signage is unclear. People don't know who's to give way to who. The car parks are all over the place. No one's fault. It's just how it's grown up over time. You know, the ones behind the BNZ were for the BNZ, but the BNZ's no longer there. So there is a real need for improvement on many fronts. Yes, this is the beginning of the market square, but it also fixes a few other problems. It's been in the town development plan. We can't afford the $2 million super duper version and may never be able to. So the option quickly becomes, well, do we do nothing and leave the car park as the mess that it is? Or do we make an improvement? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think, this does align with the town concept plan. It is a first stage. On the subject of funding, one of the happy things in Katikati is that we have our own targeted rate. And this means that there is ongoing funding for the development of the town that does not rely on the general ratepayer. It's why I think other communities should do the same, because it gives you not total independence, because it's still council land and council still has to pass resolutions, and it is appropriate that came here today. But it does mean that there is actually ongoing funding for ongoing improvements. Now, are they going to be multi-million-dollar improvements? No, because it's not that big a fund. But this will solve some real problems. It doesn't constrain or preclude any future development, and it sorts out a mess, frankly. Yeah, literally, every time you go through there, people are confused because the roading through there is unclear, it's confusing, you know, who gives way to who. So I just think get on and do it. You know, James was actually in the community board when it came up with this plan. This fits in with the plan that the town has taken to public consultation and done, and it gets us on the road to making improvements and with potential for more in future. It's a good plan.
Thank you, Councillor Joyce. Any other speakers? Councillor Henry.
This is a concept that's been around since the end of 2021 Town Centre Plan, and it was the very last thing to be done. Everything else, or relatively everything else, was done on that plan. This is the one thing that didn't get done, and it is still being carried forward by the community. The previous community board from the last triennium still carried it forward, and this board is still carrying it forward. It is of high importance to the town. Because though we all know how town centre plans are created, they're through consultation. This has not come from the councillors. This has not just come from the community board. This has come from the community. And Councillor Joyce is absolutely correct. That parking scenario that we've got there is really unreadable. Even sometimes when I'm coming around the corner, I'm in a bit of a daze. I've actually got to focus myself to actually watch how I'm going to go. There's two different lanes that you can go on, and I've gone on the wrong one when I very first came back to Katikati. What it does do is it creates one clear mess, because from we've got the library on one side, from the hub, it will actually flatten all that area out there. There will be no parking in that area. That will be a clear market space, stage one. It'll be half of what we had hoped to get. So there is some value in a market square being there, because it's away from the traffic. We have a market square in front of the hall, which is really, really noisy. We have an entertainment space that we could have out on the other side, and we've talked about the market square. The vision for Katikati was to have that, because we couldn't do anything about the connectivity for the community, being able to engage with one another on the main street of town because of the traffic issues that went through. That was what the main thing was, to have a quiet space where you could actually meet together and talk and hear one another. So don't let us lose that vision that's been around for 20 odd years just because there's a little hiccup. Now, our CEO has talked about we may never be able to afford to acquire the land that's missing from that market plan square, but we can certainly do things around the edge that actually soften that, because it's not an actual bad space. Market stores can be put up there. People can still park in it. It's additional parking to the parking that we've got. The plan that you're looking at there, the parking area, taking out the parking that we've got now, that parking configuration actually gives us more parks than we've actually got now. That's another plus. So yes, it's not perfect, it's not what we wanted, but don't let us not have some of the things we wanted because we can't get the total. It may come in the future, but we can still make it look really attractive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor Wickers.
Yeah, I'll be speaking in support of the motion. The funds have been raised for this very purpose of town development. The community board, the local councillors are all saying this is what they want. So I support localism, and that decision has been made. Well, the work's been done there, so we should be supporting that, just with the caveat that there's no expectation at this time for further funding for phase 2 or 3.
Councillor Thwaites.
Well, Andy Wickers, Councillor Wickers said it all, actually. I have very little to say, but I do congratulate that community. 92,000 a year they're generating from their own sources. That $20 fund. I was here when that $10, it was originally a $10 fund, and the Katikati councillors championed it to be raised to 20 because they saw the need for this sort of work. And so I congratulate the community board working alongside councillors. Well done.
Thank you. Councillor Maybench, did you want to speak?
Well, yes, I will, because it's, I accept everything that councillor Henry is saying about it. But I do believe that there is opportunity for outside funding and we should be pursuing that with great vigour. And because this is Katikati and it needs to continue to develop. People need it.
Councillor Sol?
Thank you, sir. Yes, I will also support this. It's, first of all, it's a community, well and truly community driven, as we're aware. They want this. And it's the community board's funding that they've raised. And of course, we have to approve that. I believe they have put up a very solid case to actually go further and to look into this project that needs further work and design. It needs to be got into, I guess, more shovel-ready situations, which is something that we as a council are moving towards more, and getting things in place, getting the ducks in a row to make things happen when and if and how they can. So this project basically is, I guess you got good, better and best, and we're starting off with good. And it fixes so many issues if they can progress it further. I'm in support of the $50,000 towards getting into the concept, sir.
Okay, I'm going to say a few words. I am in support of this, and I always have been a keen supporter of the Market Square. It's just the question was always how much are we actually able to deliver, and is that spend worthwhile? I thank staff for coming back and fleshing out the report to come back to us after the last council meeting. I think it's been a great help just to provide more information to make a solid and robust decision. So I don't think there's anyone else to speak, and I think we've probably got enough support shown around the table. So I'll put the motion for recommendations 1, 2, 3 and 4, part 4 being the bit to approve the phased approach. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So moving on to page 169, which is the item 12.4, the establishment of a regulatory hearings panel. Greer, you're explaining. I won't ask you to walk around.
Thanks. Morena, the purpose of this report is to establish a regulatory hearings panel to hear Dog Control Act matters and hear submissions and objections in relation to Reserve Act matters. These delegations currently sit with Council. The Dog Control Act requires Council to conduct fair and effective hearings and make determinations and recommendations. Under section 120, subsection 1 of the Reserves Act requires Council to allow an opportunity for submitters and objectors to be heard on Reserve Act matters. This panel will, if delegated the power, could provide that opportunity to do so. I'd like to note there's 3 exceptions outlined in 120 subsection 1, which is not included in this delegation. The terms of reference in attachment 1 outline how the panel is to be established for each matter and what the delegations are. Other than that, happy to take the report as read and answer any questions.
Thank you. I think I'd like to signal that although it's not in the report, I would suggest that behind Councillor Deputy Scrimger as chair, that Councillor Granger acts as deputy chair, given he's got the chair's endorsement for RMA and regulatory matters. So that's what I would intend to do, and if that's appropriate, we can add that as a recommendation to that. But does anyone have any questions for Greer? No? Okay. So I'll look for a mover and seconder for those 3 recommendations, and a 4th that Councillor Granger be appointed as deputy chair. Okay, Councillor Henry, Councillor Coxhead. Any debate on this? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So moving on now to item 12.5 on page 174, and that's the appointment of convener and assistant convener to the Makati Te Puke Community Forum, and this obviously follows the sad death of Councillor Crawford. So Councillor Wickers, I think, has done a sterling job of being deputy or assistant convener, and I'm happy for him to step up. And if Councillor Daly is willing to move into assistant convener, I think that would be most appropriate. So I assume there's no questions, but Councillor. Okay, I saw Deputy Mayor Scrimger first, so I'll move Deputy Mayor Scrimger, seconded Councillor Granger. Is there any further debate on that? No. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 12.6, appointment of John Hollyoak as the additional director for CoLab, the CCO.
Move the recommendation, Sue.
Thank you, Councillor Murray-Benj. Councillor Henry seconding. I assume there's no further debate. Oh, please do.
I was very excited to see that, John, that you were willing and wanted to step up into the CoLab. It was something that I don't know a lot about. Can you talk, is that something that you asked for or you were asked to do and you're happy to do it? And like, you know, the advantage of your time being taken away a little bit by doing this. I mean, it's sort of seems to fit the spatial plan and things like that.
You recall last year or the year before that we actually agreed to join LOCAB as the Waikato Bunch as a shareholder. I think that they have a lot more to offer in terms of collaboration and shared services and than our local populace does. So it's good to be part of it. I think we're already seeing the advantages. The way that the board works is that they're not all councils that are shareholders are represented. They have directors that are responsible for a group of councils. So I will be I was approached and asked, and I will be the ears and eyes for ourselves and Waipa, Coromandel and Matamata Piako. So I'll work with them to take their views forward into the board and to take information back out to them. So I've had first board meeting as a non-votey person because we hadn't passed this resolution. I think it'll add value.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's a pretty straightforward one. So it's been moved, Councillor Murray-Benj, moved and seconded Councillor Henry. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Congratulations, John. Moving on to item 12.7 on page 179, which is the delegations for the RMA and Local Government Rating Act. Lizzie.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. This report presented to you today seeks your approval for your delegated authority under the RMA and Local Government Rating Act to the delegates set out in Attachment A. So this is off the back of a standard review that we do on a regular basis and off the back of recommendations from Simpson Grierson following their review at the end of last year. So if you have any questions, otherwise I'll take it as read.
Councillor Granger.
Just going to say it's not the first one of these we've seen, and we're happy to support the recommendations as they stand, and it's something that we just have to do to keep ourselves squeaky clean. So happy to move the recommendations here.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to second that. Does anyone, I presume there's no questions or debate on this one? No? Okay, in which case I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so move to the last item for the open agenda, and that's my report to council from page 187. Does anyone have any questions on that? Councillor Henry.
Once again, I think, thank you for the more detailed information that allows us to open up some questions. What the NZ, the combined sector rural provincial Hui in Wellington, was there some commonalities that other councils that are similar to us were grappling with, apart from the standout obvious ones?
Yes, I think there's a fair bit of commonality around the sector. There's similar shared concerns. There was some good discussion on fast track and people's, I guess, largely support there, but the odd concern as well.
So,
but we heard some great and different opinions from the panel. From people like Forrest and Bird who have different concerns from people who are, from a lawyer, legal perspective to infrastructure people. So there's a good range there.
What could you pinpoint a council that's in a similar position to ours, where we're a mainly rural setting, and we're around a big city? Are there other councils that are in that sort of situation?
Well, there are other councils like that. I think a place like Waipawa would probably count. But I mean, this is a rural and provincial, so actually this is a lot of the councils that are similar to us.
Oh, okay.
Some more so than others.
So you're in communication with them?
Yeah. And then you'll get to tomorrow's Zone 2 meeting, so you'll see you can meet those people then if you wish to. Yeah. Okay. No further questions? In which case I'm happy to move my report. Councillor Henry second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we're going to move to the confidential section, and I'll move to a resolution to exclude the public. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Granger. All those in favour, please say aye.